All right. Ready to do this?
Yep.
All right. Welcome everyone to A Cup, Us, and You.
Welcome, welcome.
The show where we take the conversation from the coffee shop and bring it directly to you. I'm Anthony.
And I'm Tanisha.
And on today's show, we are going to talk about 2020.
Yes. Every time I hear someone says 2020, I think about the show, like next on 2020.
Next on 2020. Yeah.
But that's what it kind of feels like for the year, right? Like next on
Yes.
2020.
And to be honest, it is that kind of year. It feels very segmented to where it will absolutely be a recap show on a Friday night for 60 minutes of this is where we're at with stuff. So with that said, today's topic that we'll be discussing amongst myself and Tanish is the year 2020 and the hell of a year that it's been so far. We were actually kicking around this topic for quite some time, and we felt that it was fitting for our first official episode of A Cup, Us, and You on YouTube that we kind of delve in because we really feel like it set the stage for where we're at in this moment as we're talking to you right now, which is pretty crazy.
Right.
So with that said, 2020, let's take it back to the year 2019. What were your thoughts coming into 2020 as a year?
I mean, I think it's what you expect for any year, right? When you're going from one year to the next, there's this optimistic feeling of, you know, you get a chance to kind of refresh, recharge, renew, right? You're going to do things differently. You're going to do things better. You're
determined.
I'm determined.
Yeah. I'm going to make shit happen.
Yeah, like it's an opportunity to really just be like, yeah, I'm going to have it together and get it together. I know what worked last year, what didn't work last year, and we're just going to make it work for this upcoming year.
It's like a fresh start.
Yeah,
like just
fresh start.
That, and I hate to say this because we're not about New Year's resolutions or things of that nature, but, you know, the fresh start of a new year, a new opportunity to see what you can do and who you're going to be ultimately for the year.
Oh, yeah. So I guess the best way I can describe it is I was really optimistic.
Yeah.
Yeah, about the year.
For me, I was coming into this year like I always do. I try to start the year that's coming up in December. You know, that's when I'm like, okay, I need to kind of get all of my shit in order kind of thing. I know you do the same thing.
Right.
Where it's just kind of one of those like, okay, maybe if I can beat the crowd, start doing this, start doing that, and then when January 1 comes around, it's like, okay, like, I'm already 30 days into this. Like, I've got this, you know. So, I mean, I did that as normal. Instead of having New Year's resolutions, I kind of take it from the perspective of kind of having, you know, a motto, a mantra, or to be nerdy like in Naruto, my Nindo for the year, which mine was be better. And I know you do something similar in that regards as well.
Yeah, I don't even remember what it was. Kind of thrown out the window after
well, and that's the reason why
I started.
And that's the reason why I lightly alluded to you do the same, because I know you started, but it's been that kind of year.
Yeah, it has.
But again, I did everything in that same regards, and was ready to go. You know, January was firing the pistol and jumping into things, and flash forward 60 days into 2020 and March is upon us and things start to look and be differently.
Yeah. But you know what though? The red flags for me started in January. And let me tell you why. Because this is kind of, I think January, or maybe it was December, that's when news started coming out about like COVID in China. Like, but it was specifically in Wuhan. It hadn't spread yet.
Yeah.
So I was like tracking things, and my red flag was what's going on in Wuhan. And then as time progressed, it started spreading, you know, and then it hit the United States, and then March happened, and that was when everything, like pretty much the whole world, it felt like the whole world like shut down. Like,
so for me, I kind of compare it to like when you're driving too fast down the road and you got passengers in your in your car, everybody's talking, and then something darts in the road, and you slam your brakes really hard, and everybody's like, whoa, wait, what's going on?
Yeah.
That's what I felt like March was, and it was kind of crazy because same thing for me, staying current with world events, things of that nature, you know, the stuff you're hopefully supposed to be doing as an adult.
Right.
I'm pretty guilty at not doing that all the time, but something of that nature, I'm like, oh, I need to pay attention. And I'm sitting here thinking as we go into March, I'm like, oh, we've got at least 30 days to start getting some things in order. I'm starting to kind of see in the news this, and this. And then there was, you know, all hands on deck kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which I'm actually really glad that occurred because it allowed us to pump those brakes, like I said, and then kind of figure where things are.
Yeah.
So, again, you're coming into March. You kind of have an idea of like, man, 2020 is going to be this kind of year.
You're still hopeful.
Yeah, that this is what it is. But you get to March, and then you're like, whoa, like, I don't know. I don't know if it's necessarily going to remain or be that way. So at that point, there's a lot of pivoting things on that end. So from your end, from a personal perspective, how did you see and navigate through things at that point? Was it still pretty much try to find a balance between what you currently are doing and know, and then maybe slightly pivoting and moving left, right when needed? Or was it more of just, I need to really just kind of thrust myself into, like, that quick abrupt change?
It was like none of the above.
And I tried to hit a little of every corner, but I had that feeling.
I mean, okay, I eventually hit those points.
Yeah.
Right? Eventually hit that point. But before I got to those points, like, I'm not gonna lie, when stuff started shutting down, like Starbucks canceled, you know, games canceled, movies canceled, you can't go anywhere because...
For me, it reminded me, if you're a traveler, this doesn't happen because I'm taking this from a movie, but I imagine this is the truth, is that in the movies, when they're at the airport, and then all of a sudden, like, everything's delayed
gosh, yeah.
for all of the flights on the board. I felt like in my mind, that's the equivalent of what's going on. It's like, first it's this, then it's that. And that was interesting because, you know, having to work through like something of a delay, shutdown, all of that stuff. It's like, well, what am I doing? Like, how do I operate?
How do I live? How do I adjust? And it was so abrupt. You didn't have a whole lot of time to adjust.
Yeah.
And then eventually I did hit the whole, okay, we pivoted. So, yeah.
Just like that.
We pivoted. So, let me figure out how I'm going to navigate my way in this space. And then eventually I did hit, let me just thrust myself into it.
Yeah.
Because this is what it's going to be. So, somehow, some sort of way, we have to figure out how we're going to make this work. Even though this is the situation, these are the cards that we've been dealt. This is what we're dealing with. You know, it's not going to go away for a while, so here we are.
Yeah.
But I'm real talk though. I'm not gonna lie, y'all. I was freaking out. I was like, I feel like our lives had been completely upended, and I was like, wait, what? Like I wasn't. And I'm sure maybe other people felt that shock as well. But that was my experience, and that's just being honestly, like, just real talk. I was freaking out. Like when things started shifting. And
so it's interesting because, I mean, I had some similar situation scenarios that occurred in that regards, but for me, I can kind of compare it, you know, and again, you find out, like, use lots of comparisons all the time to explain the madness that is my brain. But I kind of compared it to when it's raining really bad outside or there's, like, puddles, and you're like, oh, let me hop, let me do this. I don't want to get my shoes wet, you know, this, and that. And then you're just like, screw this, and then you just start walking through the puddles.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I felt, and it's very similar to what you were just mentioning. But it's just kind of like pivot, move, you know, operate this way, figure out how to do this. Okay, this is now closed, or this is how this operates. And figuring out how to work in those confines.
Right.
And then it becomes almost second nature where you thrust yourself in there where you're like, okay, well, I guess this is the new normal. I need to not be resistant to the fact that, like, I'm thinking this might change tomorrow, this might change next week, and I'm like, I just got to maneuver through it, because the sooner and the faster that I do, the easier on my brain, my mental side of things, I'll be able to figure out how I need to operate.
Right.
Because again, I'm a creature of habit, and so if I don't have a set plan and routine to things, I tend to just lose my mind at that point, and I'm like, oh my god, what am I going to do?
Right.
So that part was pretty interesting to kind of do, and so, coming into 2020, you're thinking it's going to be, hey, it's going to be another year just like the others, with optimism, high hopes.
Yeah, excited.
You get to March, you get to April, and then it's kind of like, whoa, this is different. This is not the same, and this seems to be staying for a while as far as just operationally how you're going to live your life and be.
And I feel like when you say different, it's like, not even just different,
nonchalant.
And it wasn't very nonchalant. I mean, when you have people at the grocery store who are like, give me that toilet paper,
So I'm trying to romanticize it as best as I can.
Okay.
Because I don't want to get too much into the weeds of the dark places that was the beginning part of the year, because I don't know if my soul can take that. And I promise you guys, it wasn't, raindrops and rainbows and puppy dog tails and all that stuff, because, I feel like I was living Mad Max for a minute. I was thinking we were all going to be dressed in, leather and, studs and driving...
apocalyptic.
Yeah, driving motorcycles and muscle cars and crazy, crazy shit like that.
Oh my gosh, when you were talking about, you didn't necessarily want to go to that dark place, I totally got this image from The Lion King. When Mufasa is telling Simba, he was like, everything the light touches is yours. But that area,
stay
don't
away.
go there.
Yeah.
Stay away.
Stay away.
That is the dark place.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what I got from you when you kind of said, I was trying to kind of avoid where the hyenas hang out and play.
And that's the reason why I'm trying to romanticize it as much. Because I'm more trying to focus on the fact that we know from the pandemic side, the virus side, things of that nature, we are all well versed on knowing what tidal wave came,
right?
What residual effects remain or have pivot, just those different things like that. But it was more so on a glossed over side of, yes, this is the catalyst and the setting for what we're in. But a lot of it was just from the personal nature side of things.
Yeah.
Because one of the interesting things that came from this year, and I think lots of people experience, I had the privilege to experience this, maybe not to this degree, was remoting from home and working from home.
Yeah.
Having a full-time job that you're, in the office, your presence is there, you're in meetings, you're doing this, you're doing that, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I get to get up and throw on some shorts and a nice shirt and work? Yeah. Or in some days, I got a white tee with a hoodie on, unless I got a meeting at 3 o'clock that I need to get dressed for.
Right.
That part was interesting, because as the world's starting to kind of close down, change, adjust, you had two fronts to get used to. You had the personal side, which things stopped becoming readily available. I love movies, and I will go to the movies any free chance that I get.
Right.
All of a sudden, that extracurricular activity of mine is gone, off the table, obliterated. Who knows when it'll come back, sprout out little things to grow again. Love walking around aimlessly at Walmart or a Target and just listening to music and doing nothing while I just decompress. And then all of a sudden, these things now become not available or very restricted for necessity. So it's you have to pivot and figure out well, where do I stand in this world in a personal place, and what the hell am I going to do with my time?
Right.
And then you have the work side where you're just okay, cool, I still got my full responsibilities of my job to do, but I just got to think about it and do it differently.
Right.
And I think for 2020, that's the part where I like to try to reconnect and reminisce as much as I can, because it was a year of pivoting and growing as a person. Mm-hmm. Because we all know the setting, the situation that we're all in, and it's very, very similar. But I think it's always fascinating when you have the personal side of how did 2020 impact you outside of the obvious of, the virus and the pandemic and everything like that?
Yeah.
For you, when you got to that point, obviously you said you pivoted where you needed to, and then you also thrusted yourself in there. You're like, screw it, jumping into the deep end.
Right.
Did you have impacts on the personal side of things? Did you feel a little lost, a little lonely in that sense? Or were you kind of like, I got this?
No, it felt really discombobulating.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the best way I can really describe it.
Yeah.
It felt really surreal because it was like, well, what do you mean I can't go hang out with someone, or we can't go and
grab some coffee,
right? And just hang out in a space where there's a bunch of people and you don't
Yeah.
have to worry about anything.
and be those people that just hang out for like 3 hours and they bought a $4 coffee.
Yeah, pretty much, and it was one of those things where, there were moments where it felt really kind of overwhelming,
Yeah.
and it kind of felt a little isolating and and it was a little bit like, meh, I can't go nowhere. Like, that's what it was kind of, meh. That's really kind of what it felt like at the time.
Yeah.
And just thinking about, okay, well, how we're pretty much quarantined.
Yeah.
So
Which is a weird word I never thought I would be saying out loud in my lifetime as a descriptive,
yeah.
way of explaining my life and my status in life.
I
It's
mean, that
wild.
should really be the word of the year is quarantine. Like, honestly.
Well, there's a lot of words that should
a
be word of the year,
lot of
but
words, but
I will be super happy when we get to a point in all our lives where there's certain words we just never use or say again in some regards because they're so 2020.
yeah. But we tried to do the best that we could with what we had. Like,
Yeah.
we tried to replicate those experiences. And one of the ways we tried to replicate that was actually still, like, our garage kind of became our new space. Like, it kind of became our, like, little activity space.
Our multi-purpose, room.
Yeah, some people have dens, but for us it was our garage. So
And so, funny story about our garage is we've been in this house for almost a decade. I think this is year 9. We're going on 10. And for 9 years, it's basically been our storage, completely through and through.
right.
I mean, we tried a little bit to make it be multi-purpose, if we want to say that. But let's be real, like, bulk trash boxes, tons and tons of Amazon boxes in there, storage bins,
Yeah.
Stuff that we still had from 20 years ago in high school, we still were holding on to.
Yeah.
And we come into this year, and I remember we're thinking to ourselves that we're like, in order to survive this mentally, emotionally,
Mm-hmm.
and a little bit physically,
Mm-hmm.
we needed to like have a space that it felt inviting,
Right.
mentally, and all those things.
Right.
And for us, the garage was that safe haven. But
Right.
in order to do that, we needed to clear it out, and we needed to adult and get it where it needed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And to your point on what you were saying is that really started our outlet, our haven, if you will.
Yeah, and I think it really was the start of just thrusting ourselves into what our situation was going to be.
Yeah.
That was the push. It's like, well, this is what we've been dealt with, so let's see what we can do with this. And I think this whole situation has brought a lot of different things and changes, like our garage space
Yeah.
was one space, and that was one change that came up as well.
Yeah, and it's interesting because with the garage space, over the years, we've collected some workout equipment, a little bit here, a little bit of there, with the intentions of, I don't know, doing random stuff at home. Yeah, that ever came to be. And then all of a sudden we found ourselves in this multi-purpose space, almost having a little mini gym for us to do, because again, try to be very active and live, a good lifestyle.
Yeah, living that fitness life.
Yes, definitely.
That fitness life.
And again, the funny thing with that is that we were supposed to go on like this really great 5-6 years in the making vacation, because we're all about our jobs and we just turn our personal lives off to try to like focus on that.
Mm-hmm.
Finally get to that point, and 2020 is going to be that year. And then, pandemic hits, and then we're like, cool,
So we ain't going nowhere.
We ain't going anywhere, so might as well buy some more things for the multi-purpose. And so that's been kind of a cool little thing that now working out at home and having the means to do that, that's been great. But I really feel like if we didn't have that space, I mean, it could have been a crazier year in the personal sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then also, too, the multi-purpose space also lent itself to bring us to where we're at actually here and now in front of you.
Yeah.
And that's throwing it out there and collaborating on something creative and coming up with a random-ass talk show, conversation show.
Yeah.
About, I don't know, stuff we want to talk about, we think people might be interested in.
But I mean, sorry.
No, you're good.
But this is really a product of everything that went down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because one of the things that we did, pre-COVID, is the whole coffee shop thing.
Yeah.
And that's what we said in our intro where, one of the things we were trying to do was to actually kind of replicate that coffee shop experience where we would go to a coffee shop and just talk and have a conversation, do a little bit of work, talk a little bit more. And we decided, well, or I think you decided.
Well, for me, it was like, we ain't got that anymore, so.
So what are we going to do? And it's like, okay, well, first it was just us, and we were like, let's just sit and just have coffee and just still talk to each other.
Yeah, and actually, like, so the birth of this, A Cup, Us, and You, it all started with a friend at the gym. He did an Instagram live cooking little segment for our gym, and I kicked around the idea in my head about, like, let's do something random. Lord knows we have more than enough time to do something.
Yeah, we had the time.
For like 15 years, I've wanted to collaborate with this one right here on something creative, but we're oil and water a lot of times in the creative process to where I just throw up my hands. I'm like, I can't. And I'm sure she would never say it, but I'm sure in her head she's just like, he drives me crazy.
Yeah.
So I was kicking it around, and then our friend Luis did this awesome, little like cooking show. It was just so like straightforward and just like cool, and it was so fun to participate in it. And I was like, that's it. That's the inspiration I needed to just bite the bullet and make it happen. And so I remember, like, that next day, I braved the craziness that was, the real world. I went to Target, had a little budget in mind, and I'm like, I'm going to go buy a bunch of random shit for this impromptu show that we're just going to put together and shoot on Saturday. I think this was like a Thursday or Friday. It might have been a Friday. Came back with some cups, came back with a chalkboard, a couple of tables or chairs, and I was like, this is going down, and so we kicked around the idea. Tanish came up with A Cup, Us, and You, and we were like, I hope this doesn't come off as being, full of ourselves, or like, ooh, people are going to want to know what we think, and I'll watch.
And that was never...
And that's part of the part, I won't lie, was kind of nerve-wracking. I was like, I don't want to come off as that person who's like conceited and be like, hey guys, watch and see what we're thinking. But it actually became pretty therapeutic in the world that is 2020, where we don't have anything to do. The part where Tanisha and I would go coffee shop, hopping or whatnot, and hanging out and talking before we jump into our own little bubbles. Missed it, wanted it, and I was like, why not? Yeah. And that was the birth of A Cup, Us, and You, which we took it from the garage now into like an actual recording space in the house.
Because it was hot.
Yeah. Living in Arizona ain't no joke.
No, it's not. So
even when summer just barely starts to peak around the corner, no joke.
Yeah.
And we started doing it Instagram Live, and we would post there, just one and done, and then we'd post to Facebook. And I know for myself, I never watched them again, but it was always cool to throw them on there, see like, hey, 14 people checked you out from last week, 25, I think the highest we ever got was 36. And
we were like,
as long as like one view is there, I'm good.
Yeah, I'm
good.
like, well, somebody saw it.
And I don't even need it to be that they watched the whole video. It just means that somebody stopped and they're like, ooh, what's this? And they're like, yeah, that's not for me. And they kept it mowing. Hey, you know what? Thank you.
They popped in for a moment. Thank you. I appreciate that.
But that's been one of the cool things of 2020 is trying to make the most of it. Because honestly, if shit didn't go crazy out there, I wouldn't be sitting right here doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I actually look forward to this every week, doing this and things like that. And so, flash forward, that started at the very beginning of April. Here we are, a week away from wrapping up August.
Yeah.
And now we're making the jump into YouTube, not by choice. Instagram Live was giving us issues, things of that nature,
mm-hmm.
and we also wanted to try to branch out and do some other things because we still have time and the creative process is just like fun and exciting. And so we're like, you know what? Hey, why don't we make that jump? Make that jump and do it. And again, this is solely like on our end of just being nerdy and having a release from this year that is 2020. And I mean, it's been really cool and awesome.
Yeah, it really has.
Yeah. So, again, when it comes to 2020, you have all of this stuff that kind of goes down. Sirens are blazing. You got to pivot left. You got to thrust yourself in. You make your common spaces where you need to in your home. Come up with creative stuff, like, for instance, us creating a concept show and
mm-hmm.
branching out and doing this and that. Have there been other things in 2020 for you that you may not have gotten the opportunity, or maybe did some little overindulging because there was a little bit more time on your hands because things aren't necessarily open, readily available, things like that? Or was it kind of getting it back to more of the same?
No, I mean, I found myself trying other things, right? Or really kind of delving.
You got time.
Because I had the time.
Yeah.
Like, for example, reading is one of them. I've always been a big reader, but having a little bit more time and being home, I kind of really jumped into my book nerddom even more. Like, I really kind of dug deep and jumped into the deep end with that.
Which a funny side note of it is, not sure why she had the idea to read it this year, but she kind of slightly started the year off reading Stephen King's The Stand.
Oh my gosh.
And totally pivoted away from it just because it hit too close to home this year.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a story for another day. But again, you are definitely absolutely 100% a reader because you are powered by books.
Committed. Powered by books. Yeah.
I like how she flexed there, too.
Yeah, because on my shirt, she's flexing.
Well, yeah, but she went like double guns on that one. But no, that's one of the cool things because you always try to fit it in, but this year kind of gave you a little bit more room to breathe, to read.
Right.
More so than you ever have.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then also jumping into, and this is because of this guy
I'm
over
already
here.
smiling because I know where she's going.
Jumping into gaming. Woo! My little Nintendo Lite. Like.
Switch Lite.
My Switch Lite, which I absolutely love, and I'm super into Animal Crossing, which is, I love that game. Ah! So the new one came out when we were in the middle of all of this, and I was like, ain't got nothing else to do, so I was like, all up into Animal Crossing. And now I have graduated to other games, and I'm giving a try as well. So this guy over here helped me with getting into some other games, like throwing down on some Tetris, throwing down this game called Puyo Puyo. So I'm getting into games a little bit more, which is really exciting because I've never really been into games.
Yeah.
And kind of, everything that went down really kind of opened the door for all of that, for me to really explore different things and different things that I can do with my time.
Yeah.
So.
And for me, again, as we talked about, making time for gym time now in the garage or, our box, coming up with creative outlets of, coming up with a show and doing all that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm kind of in that same boat with you as well. Surprisingly, movies are not even remotely in my bubble this year. Again, if you've watched the shows that were on our Instagram and Facebook, movies are my life when it comes to that stuff, you know. And I've only maybe seen one, maybe two new movies this year, and honestly, it's quite refreshing, you know. I know I'm getting that bug to want to jump back into new movies, but I feel like for me, I had the crowning achievement a week before, like, life went from this end of this chapter to the next chapter. Broke my record of watching 5 movies in one day in the theaters. And honestly, I felt like, to me, I was like, that'll do, pig. That'll do. And I felt very fortunate because I feel like I've been on hiatus since then, because there's no way I can top that right now. So we'll let that one sleep. But to like with your books, I feel the same way about video games. So I feel like I was able to really just lean back into video games. I mean, I'm a kid from the 80s, so video games is like an extension of me. Like, it's just, you know, it goes hand in hand. So I feel fortunate enough to have that time to really jump back into video games the way that I want to, because the last couple of years I've been a casual gamer. Of course, when the big AAA titles that come out that you just absolutely have to play, I make the time for it. But it's been nice to just jump and thrust yourself back in. So like you said, where you try to fit in reading, but this year it allowed you to really lean into it a lot more. And then I think outside of that, a lot of it has just been trying to make... I don't know, I think I feel like I've taken some time this year to find balance between work and personal, and like having the time to like be really nerdy and like, how can I make this work? How can this? And, you know, the whole idea this year of being better and stuff like that, I really feel like that's helped me, you know, figure out how to find more work-life balance. Because some days it feels like a myth and unattainable, and other days, especially this year, I don't know if I would have been able to get that far. So that's been really cool to just see, like, what I can do with a day. You know, what I can do with a week, and how I feel at the end of that week or that day. You know, it's been really, really rewarding, you know. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I mean, if the world tomorrow, we wake up and everything's like right back to where it was January, February, I mean, hell yeah, I'd run, go sit down, eat, drink coffee for like the longest period of time, which we still do very lightly. You know, that's not like that's off the table, but like going there and movies and the whole nine. But that's the thing about this year that's been cool, is that the field is open. You know? And I wish I could say that I have more additional things there, but I really feel like right now I have just the right balance of things that I'm into, that I'm doing, and that I'm trying to make happen, and not trying to do everything like I tend to do sometimes because I have a free weekend or I have a free week or something like that. Because I tend to be extra, like hardcore extra, and that's actually nice.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. So with that said, 2020 has been an interesting year. Before we start to get things closed down on the topic, we still have September, October, November, December. So we have, here in Arizona, we basically still are kind of in summer. So September usually always feels like still summer. When it should be fall, it's really not. It's like summer light. And then we have the holiday months. You know, fall, winter months. Any ideas from your perspective? Anything from that personal perspective that you want to try to achieve and get out of 2020? I mean, we're literally coming into the last third of this year, which is insane. It's insane to know that at the end of next week, we'll have already lived through 2/3 of 2020. Anything that you're looking to? I know that you're getting ready to jump back into the teaching game for the semester, everything on that, from taking a little bit of your time off during your summer break. But anything that you are looking to try to achieve, or kind of more of the same?
I don't know. Like, that's a really good question. I'm not... I
haven't really given it too much thought, huh?
I haven't really given it too much thought. I feel like My gut answer is just try to survive.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, just
1 week at a time.
1 hour at a time.
I mean, try to be a little bit more optimistic, but
Yeah,
it's
I
true.
I know. But
If there was a year to say I can only take it 1 hour at a time, yeah, this is the year.
yeah, it's
So, putting you, Johnny, on the spot there.
yeah, and I remember years ago. I remember someone asked this question of when you're living life, you have to ask yourself: are you surviving or are you thriving? And the goal is to thrive, and
Not to survive.
not just to survive. I mean, surviving is important.
Yeah, no,
But
I know
want,
you want to be. You want to be proactive versus reactive.
right,
Yeah.
right, proactive, and I mean the goal. My gut reaction said survive, but the goal is really to thrive as much as I can.
Yeah.
In the circumstances that we're living in right now, and that is the challenge.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's one thing to thrive when you're not dealing with the pandemic, right? But it's another thing to really try to thrive when you have there's so much uncertainty, there's so much going on in the world, and you really have no idea how things are going to play out. All you can do is just try to take it like hour by hour and just try to be the best person that you can be within the present moment that you've been given.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what I'm striving for, is that I
For
want
these next 4 months.
for the next 4 months is just to thrive
Yeah.
and finish the year and hopefully feel like, you know what, looking back, it's like we went through all of that and we're here and we made it, and looking forward to seeing what the next year is going to bring.
Yeah.
I still want to be able to have that optimism, even though things have been a little cray-cray.
Yeah. For you, it's still a blank canvas, things to be determined.
Right.
But it's more of, it's about the approach, the mindset.
The
behind
mindset,
it.
the attitude, I still want to maintain my optimism. I still want to maintain my positivity. I really want to thrive, and that's the goal, because you can really easily get weighed down
Yeah.
and find yourself in a really, really dark, scary place. And
Especially during the last few months of the year when, seasons change and,
Yeah.
fall and winter brings, those darker thoughts and feelings. Because again, it's winter and it's fall, it's
yeah,
winter.
and there's a lot of uncertainty
Yeah.
because we have no one knows. I was about to say no one knows anything, but honestly, like I'm just hoping that I can just keep the attitude up, and hopefully, whatever comes our way, we just deal with it in the best way that we can,
Yeah.
and just roll with the cards that we've been dealt with.
Well, and I like the survive or thrive kind of statement, especially applicable to this year. And no, I'm right there with you for how I see the rest of 2020 playing out, at least from my perspective, for my personal side of things, in like what I'm trying to get out of the years. I want it to be something that by the end of the year, like, I'm proud where I finished.
Yeah.
Pretty proud where I started with, again, the natural routine of, okay, it's December, 31 days to like get in order, so then that way you can start off strong. And by the time I get to December 1st of this year, because again, that's when I feel like my New Year's starts,
Mm-hmm.
I want to feel like I got a good handle on things. I got a good attitude about things. I'm trying to remain positive on the things that I don't or I'm working on. And I really just want to continue to keep leaning into that balance.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's interesting because I wish I could sit here and say, like, I have a list of the things that I want to check off specifically in the next 3 to 4 months. But I think the way that this year has played out, I think the safest bet is to know that you're striving for something in general and let those pieces kind of fall in so that you can start to build that list as you go through the months. Because the way that this year has basically chewed a lot of people up and spit them out and chewed them back up again and spit them back out, it's better to err on that side of lightly, as you said, just every hour versus like every week.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what I want to do, is just continue to thrive or strive to thrive.
Yeah, that's nice.
To get to a good headspace in everything, And it's going to be interesting. I love the fall. Here in Arizona, it's like 2 weeks, but
but it's still nice.
It's still really nice,
Yeah.
especially October. October is like my favorite month of just the season, the year, you know, the coming of the Halloween mood and all of that stuff. And so it's just always nice, but I kind of want to try to take it with as much stride and continue to allow normalcy to establish itself, you know, and just roll with it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so 2020. Closing thoughts as we shut things down. We talked about how we came out of 2019 into a relatively normal year.
Yeah.
I mean, aside from if you're following current events, you know, things are brewing. Things are coming, you know, over the horizon line. You know, it's just when, how, where, you know, all that good stuff. Then you get the bomb dropped on you, then you pivot, you jump into the deep end, you know, you scurry back, you take a few steps, and then you are thrust into what is essentially your new normal, how you operate, and then how you try to thrive in it, and then what you try to, you know, the outlook of what's left of the year. So with all of that said, and this is 2020, not the show, the year, any final thoughts that you have for the people out in the world for the year 2020?
I think the thought that comes to mind is that I feel like everyone's been dealt a different hand in the midst of all of this, right?
Some good, some bad.
Some good.
Some appropriate at the time, some not so appropriate at other times, and the ebbs and flows.
Yeah, and everyone's journey has had its, like you said, its ebbs and flows, its ups and downs, its challenges. I feel like everyone's been challenged in some type of way, shape, or form. And sometimes in the midst of things, like if I feel like I'm going through something or it's just a challenge or a difficult time, you know, I think to myself, I try to, you know, remain positive, remain optimistic, but I always try to see if I can, if possible, see what am I supposed to gain or learn from this situation, right? Like, for example, you know, family. I think about families, and maybe families are in a situation where maybe you didn't spend a lot of time together because of just school and work and your lives. And then maybe throughout this situation you realize, man, we really should spend more time together. So let's try to spend more time together within this space and do game nights and all this other stuff. The lesson learned from
taking
that
it back
situation.
to a more basic foundation.
Yeah, and kind of really thinking about, what am I supposed to learn? What am I supposed to gain from this experience?
Yeah.
You know, and let me learn it while I'm in this situation and help me to grow from this situation. I know that's easier said than done, because sometimes when you're in the thick of it, you're like, oh Lord, I don't know if I'm going to make it or if I'm going to get through this. You know,
you're not really necessarily thinking, should I be learning from something from this?
Let me learn from this, like Sesame Street, like let me learn from this lesson.
It's like, hold on.
Yeah.
Let me figure out what I'm supposed to learn, and then we can continue.
That's not how life works sometimes.
I wish it did.
So, everything is not a Sesame Street lesson, but I think sometimes...
That would be dope if it was, though.
Yeah, that would be awesome. But I think sometimes all we can do is just try to do the best that we can with the cards that we've been dealt with in the situation that we're in at that moment.
Yeah.
And I know that's easier said than done. And, you know, hopefully by the end of this we'll reflect back and think about the lessons learned and the gains that we got from this experience.
Yeah.
You know, whether that's, you know, we should spend more time as a family, or, you know what, I don't spend a lot of time for myself and personal time, right? If you're a person who's been a worker bee and like work, and then all of a sudden you have a little bit more downtime because of this situation, maybe it's one of those things where you're like, you know what, I do need to have more personal time, or, you know what, I have a little bit too much stress in my life. How can I reduce that stress?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so there are little nuggets I think we can kind of learn from this, right, that can help us to be better and to grow. And I think that's kind of what I'm trying to say. I know it's a little bit long-winded.
No, you're fine.
But I think we know, like I said, to wrap it up, sum it up, we've been dealt different hands, and hopefully we'll be able to learn from the hands that we've been dealt. That's what I'm trying to say.
Ooh, nicely stated at the end.
Oh, thank you.
Nice for the wrap-up. No, I mean, mine I think will, as always, and per usual, kind of echo, you know, that same sentiment as well for my closing thoughts of things, is that it's it's a matter of like, this has been a strange year, and I think 2021 will continue to bring a lot of these threadings and foundations into it as well, because obviously January 1st is not just, cleaning up a whiteboard and then all of a sudden you start fresh. And in some ways, yes. In other ways, no. But I think a lot of it is just to remember the ebbs and flows that you're kind of going through. So when you do have an opportunity, if the board is clean and you can figure out what you want to do with it, is just to pull back from the things that you experienced, that you learned, and how you can apply that to what is now the next chapter, the new version of yourself. I would hate to think to myself that if everything was to end next month or anything like that, as far as like what we're currently dealing with now, and then go into this, that all of a sudden I'm like, cool, I don't need the show anymore, and I can go back to doing this, and then just like take steps backwards.
Yeah.
I really want to make sure that the things that I've learned, the things that I've learned to appreciate or see differently, I want to make sure that I don't take that for granted and then just be like, we're free!
Yeah.
Go back to all the bad habits!
Right.
And then to what you had stated as well, I agree wholeheartedly, is that the things that I realize that I maybe should have done more or different or things of that nature is really take that with me to the point that when I get that opportunity to really lean into them, is not lose sight of the fact that like I did have opportunity to do all of these things at a certain point and either had an excuse why I couldn't or I shouldn't, or I was being lazy and didn't make the time for it or things on that end. And so those are the things that I want to make sure that I do for myself as well, is just what, again, this year is be better. And I honestly could not have picked a better year to have that. Be my saying for the year is be better, because I found myself in lots of moments this year where I just want to throw up my hands and I want to go back to bed or whatever the case is. And I'm like, no, you got to be better. You got to be better for yourself. You got to be better for the people around you, and you just got to be better, and I think that really helped level me through, as we stated earlier, the dark times, or the uncertainties and the ebbs and flows that come. So again, for me to you guys, it's just again how things are and what they are. So with that said, let us know what you guys think of 2020, in the comments. And is there anything that you guys feel, was necessary to pivot towards or to learn, or that you're grateful and glad that you got that opportunity because you might not have otherwise done that? Because we're so interested in hearing those stories, especially like a year like this year, where I feel like there's been lots of doors shut, but lots of opportunities where windows and other doors have opened that allow creativity and opportunity and things of that nature. And were you one of the individuals that seized that moment or waited for it to come back around, just maybe that second time as it came around the corner, be like, okay, I guess I'll do it, because Lord knows I had a couple of those moments this year. So with that said, we're closing things out, but as always, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Again, as we stated, as we talked about the show, we do this for fun. It's one of the highlights that we have for our week. So we hope that we bring some kind of entertainment, some kind of joy to the situation, and because we know that it does for us.
Yeah, absolutely.
So with that said, as our cups state, be you, be kind, and make sure that, you keep your eye on the prize, and we hope that you have a good week leading to our next episode. But with that said, from Anthony to
Tanisha,
this has been another episode of A Cup, Us, and You. All right, guys. Until next week.
Bye. Thank you for watching. See ya.